And we're back. It's Syracuse Sports. Hope you haven't melted in the heat dome that has surrounded a lot of the country, but we're back. We're cooled off and we're ready to go. And two big things to talk about today. One is the Syracuse basketball NBA draft drought, which we're going to get into here in just a second. But I'm looking forward to our guest today, Jim, the Manchild Lerch. Jim is ending his radio program, once known as Bud of the Manchild, now known as the Manchild Show with Boy Green. But I'm happy to say it is a farewell. It is not a goodbye, because the show is going to continue in a digital format, in a podcast YouTube format, much like the show that you're watching and listening to now. And we thank you for that. We would remind you to subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever format works best for you. So when a new episode of Syracuse Sports pops up, you won't miss a darn thing. Jim is going to complete what was the longest running sports talk show in Syracuse, New York. It was on a number of different stations in Syracuse, the Score 1260 being the latest iteration and the last iteration in terms of radio, but he is going to continue the show in a digital format. So Jim and I walked down memory lane a little bit as Adrian Autry attempts to rebuild Syracuse basketball. We know how important it's going to be for Syracuse to make the NCAA tournament. They are in a 4-year drought. It is one of their longest droughts ever. You cannot be a serious program in college basketball in a high-level conference like the ACC if you have that long of a drought in missing the NCAA tournament. They're just coming off their second losing season in decades, 14-19 last season. You know all the stats. You don't need me to reiterate where Syracuse basketball is at. But they're going to get a little bit of a salt in the wound reminder of that with the NBA draft taking place this week. And with Syracuse basketball, once again, not hearing its name called. The last player taken in the NBA draft out of Syracuse was Elijah Hughes in 2020. That's 5 consecutive years without a player taken in the draft. That's the longest Syracuse has had since the NBA draft began in the late 1940s. Syracuse has not had a player taken in the first round of the NBA draft since Tyler Lydon in 2017. It's the longest gap between first rounders since Dave Bing in 1966 and Marty Burns in 1978. Now, Syracuse isn't the only school having problems there. Their dry spell, though, is one of the longest in the ACC. Only 4 ACC schools have had longer runs without a player taken in the NBA draft. Clemson and SMU are the only 2 ACC schools that have gone longer without a player taken in the first round of the NBA draft. Syracuse basketball certainly has a rich history. They have certainly put a number of players into the NBA. Adrian Autry can talk to a prospect and can seriously have a conversation about Syracuse's place in the ACC, its facilities, its history of sending players to the NBA. And he can do that with a straight face, but you got to renew those receipts. If you haven't done it in 5 years, and if you haven't personally done it as a coach, he certainly was a part as an assistant coach of some of those names that we mentioned and some others that got drafted in that range before the drought started 5 years ago, right? So he does have that. But you have to renew those receipts. Things move fast. You can't have almost a new generation of basketball fans. 5 years is a long time that does not hear or see Syracuse on the screen. Not only in the draft, but look at the current state of things. 1 Syracuse player is on a current NBA roster in Jeremy Grant. Cole Swider has been kind of straddling the line, as has O'Shea Brissett, who did finish last season with Philadelphia, and we'll see what the upcoming season brings. And he did win a title with the Boston Celtics. Buddy Boeheim was kind of straddling the line, spent some time with Oklahoma City, but spent most of his time in the G League. So what Syracuse doesn't have is they don't have a feeder system of Syracuse players to replenish, and they don't have a lot of current presence in the NBA. That's what you need. And we're coming off a very successful NFL draft when you heard plenty of discussion. Now, the run didn't start until later in that draft. You had Aronde Gatson go to the Chargers and Kyle McCord go to the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to have Fidel Diggs, LaQuinn Allen in NFL camps, Justin Barron's at the Dallas Cowboys camp. I'm forgetting a couple names here, but there was a strong presence. Syracuse's name was on that screen throughout the draft best player available. There's Kyle McCord's name. There's LaQuinn Allen's name. There's Jackson Meek's name. Like, you get the point. Syracuse basketball has not had that in 5 years. That is a long time. Their current presence in the NBA is drying up. Now, there is hope on the current roster. Donnie Freeman was getting a lot of buzz to be in this draft before the injuries and the things that took him out last season. He will be a player that will be watched closely by NBA scouts, even potentially for the 2026 NBA draft. Both incoming freshmen in Sadiq White and Kiyan Anthony, of course, the son of the biggest NBA presence Syracuse has had, Carmelo Anthony, according to scouts, have the chops to make a pro run. I don't know if they're one and done guys, but are eventually going to be NBA prospects, and sooner rather than later. Maybe there's a surprise or two on that roster that we're not giving enough credit there. But it does seem that there is hope the drought will end relatively soon. But there is almost nothing you can do more to promote yourself to recruit. And I get we're in an NIL era. I get we're in a transfer portal era. We're going to enter an era where you can directly compensate players. That was a big part of what bringing J.J. Starling and Donnie Freeman was for Adrian Autry. I understand all that, right? But the best way that you can, in essence, promote yourself and renew the receipts as a big-time college basketball program, if you have no presence in the NBA and you're not making the NCAA tournament, you're only falling farther behind. So I think everybody knew that. But you're going to get a stark reminder of that in watching the NBA draft, which is now a 2-night event, by the way. They've taken the model from the NFL and spread it out over a couple of days. You're not going to hear Syracuse. You're not going to see Syracuse unless it's some Syracuse opponents that are getting drafted. And that's going to sting. But it's just a reminder of what Adrian Autry has on his plate and what he's trying to rebuild, a reputation and a pipeline to the pros. We love to feature your original music here on Syracuse Sports. We've been getting some great submissions for you. I've been seeking out some local artists as well, and you guys have done an amazing job in sending in your music, but keep it coming. All of the information on how you can have your original music featured here on Syracuse Sports, it's in the show notes. It's pretty simple. All you have to do really is email me, and we'll go back and forth a little bit about getting permission to use your music, and you'll hear it here on the pod. We've had an amazing opportunity to highlight some original artists. And the latest one today is a band called Gypsy Nights. It's a song called Wait For Me. Love the beat, love the feel of this tune. So what we'll do is we'll play a portion of that song now, and then we'll play it in its entirety at the end of the podcast. And we can do that for you as well. So get in touch and send us your original music so we can highlight it here on Syracuse Sports. So let's play a little bit of that, and then we'll talk with my good friend, Jim, the Manchild Lerch. A radio show ends, but a new product set to begin soon. So, Jim, I feel like we should have Mayor Walsh here with a plaque, the longest running sports talk show in Syracuse. But it's about to make a transition, and I'm happy that I'm saying that. I'm happy that we're saying it is going to transition from one place to the other, and we will still have the Manchild show with Boy Green. So we'll talk about that and a bunch of other things. But I just want to ask you how you're feeling. You know, we chatted on the radio this week, and you've had a long stroll down memory lane as the radio days come to an end. What's that experience been like for you?
I mean, so far it's been joyous. It's been a great celebration of 23 plus years in the same medium. I've really enjoyed it so far, but I have a feeling as the week goes on the melancholy will set in. I certainly have had some kind of emotional moments, but I've been able to kind of keep a brave front and not really, cry or break down in any way. I'm certainly feeling some heartfelt messages from people, which is really beautiful. But I think, come the end of the week and kind of my goodbye, I'm writing a little kind of goodbye speech. It'll be ad lib, but I want to just make sure I hit a few points along the way. I think when I do that, then, you know, maybe I'll get a little bit choked up. I have delivered 2 eulogies in my life. I know how hard it is to do that. I did it for my dad and for my aunt. And I remember having to kind of get myself right for that. And so I guess I'll employ some of those strategies so that I don't
It'll hit you.
lose
Yeah.
it on the air. But it's going to hit me. And when I walk out of that studio for the final time, that studio has been like my personal living room, my home away from home. You know how comfortable that chair is. You sat in it for a long time as well. We have very similar paths in that sense.
We do.
It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird handing in my little pass, my little fob that gets me into the building. Oh, now I got to ask someone to let me in. I've always been welcomed over there at Cumulus Media. So all of that is probably going to hit me.
The fact that you get to do this is amazing because we live in a business where you don't always get a last show by choice.
No doubt.
And you do want to hear what people would say about you at your funeral, so to say, right?
Yes.
So I hope you're enjoying that, and you deserve every accolade that comes your way. And I'm so happy for you, and I'm happy that the show is going to continue in a digital format, much like this show has in a digital format. So the easy question, Jim, but one that I want to get your perspective on: why make the transition now?
It just seemed the time. I mean, I think sometimes we all kind of just look at our careers and we think, where is the world going? I'm a college professor. I've been doing that over the last 15 years. I'm around young people all the time. And one of the things that I've known for a long time, I didn't just figure this out in the last week or two, is that younger people don't even know that AM radio exists, which is the platform that I've been on all these years. And they, even radio itself, it has its misgivings. Certainly commercials can be a real distraction for people when there are other elements out there. You can just put a playlist together and play whatever it is you want to listen to. The podcasts don't typically have much in terms of commercials, or if they do, they're very short. So I think all of that has contributed to young people kind of looking for other options. Radio still has its place. I'm not saying radio's dead, but I don't think you can grow your audience in the AM radio space. And I think in the digital space, not only will we be able to grow the audience, but our audience is going to swing younger. I have no doubt about it. I mean, I'm trying to teach our older viewers, our older listeners, I should say, in radio, how to, get on YouTube and have a YouTube subscription, and how to click subscribe, and how to interact with us literally when we're on the air in that digital space. But I think that for younger people, that's a given. And now you just got to earn their trust. You got to put out good content, and they say, hey, I want this every day in my inbox, so to speak. So I just think there are a lot more opportunities. And then the last thing is just, in radio, as you know, just like television, I did television before I did radio. I've been in this thing for 30 plus years. You have to be at a desk at a certain time to deliver your content. And I think this wonderful world is, oh, Tom Thibodeau's replacement is hired. He gets hired later this afternoon. My partner and I are doing a pod. Hey, what do you think of the hire? We bring in our NBA insider, or we get one of our guys, we hack it up with them, and now we get first dibs at stuff.
Yeah.
And when you got to wait till 10 in the morning the next day and something happens, say, at noon today, everyone's had a whack at it, and you're the last person at the piñata. I mean, there's no more candy inside, So I love the idea that we can be first whack in some instances, that we can be on breaking news a lot more. And so just the flexibility of not having to sit in a studio and deliver content at a particular time also really intrigues me going forward.
Yeah, it's intriguing how, because certain things were targeted towards certain demographics, and I still think maybe we do that in some ways in the media business now, but I have the great fortune to teach as well, and they tell you when it's time. Just by teaching them about the path that we've been on in the business itself, you figure out what their trends are and what their habits are and how quickly things change. But at the same time, Jim, I remember having to teach my mom what a podcast was
Yes.
and then how to do it. But now she's an ace. Now she's telling me, oh, listen to your pod. And it's like, you can do it. You can make that transition. And of course, the iPhone and technology has made that so much easier today. So I think that, and I don't want to speak for you here, but I think that would make that transition a little less scary, as opposed to maybe starting another radio show or doing something in traditional media. There's some exciting opportunities ahead there. So I'm really happy that you're doing that. But it gets in your blood, man. When you have
Yeah,
done
no
radio
doubt.
as long as you have, it is a unique thing, and it'll always be a part of you and I have had the great experience to do that. So it'll always be there. And in a time where you're reminiscing and looking back here, let me ask you, what was your favorite thing to do on the radio? It could be a certain topic, a certain format, just something that you look forward to. And maybe you can carry over into transition, but something that you probably would label as something unique to radio.
Yeah, I mean, I always have thought that the uniqueness of radio is just kind of the conversation. That it's like 8 seasons of Seinfeld, or was
Yeah,
it 9? I think it was 9. I'm still
I think
watching
so.
Seinfeld
Yeah.
reruns, and I've probably seen every one 5 times, and I still can't get away from it sometimes.
And they hold
You
up.
know,
Yeah.
it's that, today's story links to tomorrow's story, links to the next day. And I've been lucky enough to work with only 2 hosts over all these 23 plus years. So those stories really perpetuate. And by the way, my prior host, Bud Poliquin, we used to work with you guys,
That's right.
Bud still comes on the show once a week. So I still haven't even disconnected and unplugged from Bud. He gets to have his take every Monday. He was fumbling with technology this past week as he tried to come on the show on Monday. We're trying to straighten
Nothing
him out from
changes, does
afar.
it?
So some things never change,
Yeah.
but it's those themes, and they keep coming back. And in this final week of radio here for me, it's been very cathartic to go back to those moments, and they stand the test of time because they kind of are part of the fabric of the show. So certainly I've loved covering Syracuse basketball in their national championship, have loved some really great football seasons and some really interesting characters and coaches. I've had a couple of really cool, I'll call them my friends. They're probably not, they probably wouldn't label me the same, but I had a great relationship with Marlon Greenwood, the linebacker who ended up playing in the NFL. Him and I have had a really great relationship over the years. Haven't talked to him in a long time. Jason Hart, I thought, was one of the most stand-up SU basketball players ever, and I always will say that about Jason. To me, he just always showed up, win, lose, or draw, and had something to say, and I loved that about him. So there have been characters and coaches and seasons and championships that I've enjoyed, but I would say the thing I've enjoyed most is just the conversation with the callers, with my co-hosts, and the kind of the repetitive nature of themes keep coming back over and over again. I think that's been the most enjoyable part for me in radio.
What are you most proud of in terms of the impact the show has made?
The longevity, I think. I
Mm.
just can't believe it. When Bud and I started it, we thought maybe a year or two, maybe. We just, neither one of us had done talk. I wasn't even that interested in doing talk. My bosses kind of insisted I did something on the air, and I was like, all right, I know I came from television. Some people kind of know who I am in this town. All right, I'll try to figure something out. And then the only thing I could come up with was to do a talk show. I was like, oh no, this is going to be so much work, so much prep. I already have a full-time job as a program director, and now I got to do a radio show. So that was interesting. But once we got into it, and once I got to know Bud, and once the kind of the magic, the spark started to happen, where it got personal, where we started talking about each other's lives around the theme of sports, that's when I started to really enjoy it. And then I was like, I could do this for a while. But to think that he'd hang in, I mean, remember, for Bud, it was a part-time job, it was a side job. He's just making a little extra cash. He had a full-time job over at syracuse.com and the Post Standard. So for him to hang in there for 17 years, and then for me to find a producer who turns into my next co-host and stay with him for another 7, it's unbelievable to me. I can't believe I'm sitting here talking about longevity. I mean, I sit down at Cumulus. Right in the studio next to me is a reminder of that every day. Ted Namey of 93
Yeah.
Q. They are pillars. They are
Legends.
institution. They are legends here in Central New York. And to even be mentioned in the same breath with a pair like that is really remarkable. So I think it's the longevity that's really got me all these years.
And should be, because it's a cutthroat business.
Oh,
And if you can last this long, and certainly you've moved stations and in this case, moving formats, but to have some sort of anchor that long is a testament to the impact you've made on the community and just being able to pivot and what you've learned along the way. As we said, you learn from the younger generation and you have to go where everything's going. Now, that being said, you brought up Bud, our old friend Bud Poliquin, of course, longtime Post Standard and Syracuse.com columnist. And the unique thing about Bud is, amongst many, we could do a whole show about him. Through all the years and all the changes and how life has accelerated, Bud has not changed at all.
no.
He
Bud
is
will never change.
still the same Bud Poliquin he was when you guys started that show in
Yeah.
2002. And I look at old headshots of Bud in the Post-Standard with that mustache, and
The
he's probably
cheesy
he's the
mustache.
same guy in 2025 than he was in 1985. It's incredible
It's true.
through all the changes. But I think that's what was part of what made that dynamic between you two so great. You touched on it, though, when you opened up a little bit and you started talking about the quirks that both of you had, let alone Bud's quirks, and you make it relatable and you connect with the audience. Not that you can't do that in this format. I think it's possible. And we have a text line that we utilize with this show too that enables me to reach out to we call them our Syracuse Sports Insiders, and they can
Directly.
text with
Yeah.
me. And I think there's a connection there, right? But again, radio, it's very unique. That connection you make with people, the theater of the mind and the connection. And there's something about it that really, I'm just going to use that word again, connects with people. And I think how you and Bud built that dynamic about almost anything but the subject matter of the show is something it's going to be a challenge for you to replicate in the digital space. But I think you've got plenty of runway to do it.
Yeah, it will be because, I mean, again, not that we can't kind of rub each other a little bit here or interrupt each other a little bit here, but it's more awkward in the video space to do that. I know that from doing television for 7 years. Like, it's one person speaks at a time. Otherwise, everything kind of in radio, you can yell and scream and mash things. And I love that conversant nature of it. But yeah, no, Bud, he'll never change. Having him as a partner really was a blessing. I didn't know it at the time, but it did turn into a real blessing to be working with him and all of his quirks. And you want to know a funny thing too? I always criticize Bud, and still do to this day, never prepared. He just walked in and just was, whatever I had prepared, he was going to deal with. And by the way, if I prepared something that he didn't like, he would just go, "What are we talking about that for?" Or I don't have an opinion about that. Could we just move on? I was just like, always like, "Excuse me, but no, I prepared this." And sometimes I would literally go at him and say, "No, I prepared to talk about this topic today. So like it or not, too bad. Have something to say,
show, buddy. Yeah.
or I'll just do all the talking, And then some days I'd be like, "All right, you're right. Okay, it's not a great topic. All right, let me go to the next one, and I would pull it up. The one I know the funny thing about it is that the one thing what a monologue is. A monologue generally is kind of how you open the show.
Yep.
And some days it's just setting the table. Here's a couple of topics we're going to hit, and it might just be kind of mundane and, dare I say, a recipe of some sort, right? But most days it's not. Most days you kind of have a message or a theme or something that you're going to tell the audience about. In all the years that I've done this show, I have never, for the most part, maybe, I mean, I could probably count them on one hand, the amount of times I prepared my monologue. I literally walk into that studio, crack the mic, and until the theme song ends and I'm cued to start, I have no idea what the first words out of my mouth are going to be. And it has been a great recipe for success for me. Sometimes it's just like, "Man, it's hot out today. Ooh, these last couple of days, brutal." And then it just lends itself to something. And I ran into this guy in the store and he was telling me he can't stand hot weather. And then all of a sudden it's just this whole story. And before you know it, 15 minutes have gone by. My partner, Bud or Boy Green, have jumped in and said a few things themselves or just chuckling in the corner, and the show is off and running. Oh, yeah. By the way, folks, yeah, we do have some sports to talk about today. I've always loved that organic nature that I think radio lends itself to. And I've really, I think, taken advantage of that. Even in our online digital product that we're going to be doing once we leave the airwaves of the radio, I think I'm going to try to do something like that. I'm thinking of calling it like Manchild's Musings or something. And it's just a solo thing for me. I'm not even sure whether Paul's going to jump in on it or not. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Or it's just going to kind of be like my monologues, just like what's hitting me at the moment. Sometimes it might be just life, not even sports necessarily.
Jim, what was your favorite day on the air?
Ooh, wow. Well, we should ask the other question. What were my least favorite days on the air? Let me answer that one. Let me answer that one first.
That was my next
favorite.
Yep,
All right, so let's do least first. Let's do least first.
Let's flip them around. Yep.
Least favorite days on the air was really, I'll call it a 3-week period, and I've talked about this on the radio, when the Bernie Fine story broke.
Yeah.
Because we literally, and you know it too, you were on the air, same station as me at the time. All right. 3 weeks of nonstop calls and discussion about an incredibly sensitive topic, and also being in a position where we could, in some weird way, persecute Bernie Fine publicly without necessarily knowing all the facts. And then that tape breaks. You won't forget the tape, right? Nobody that ever
Mhm.
heard that tape forgets the tape. It's
Mhm.
Bernie Fine's wife and one of the accusers. And it sounds like, again, kind of circumstantial evidence that something went on here that wasn't so good. Bernie maybe wasn't behaving in an appropriate way that an assistant coach of a basketball team should in his relationship with a ball boy or two. That was rough. Just trying to navigate that the right way, trying to be fair to both the audience, the victims, and Bernie. I don't know, that was almost an impossible juggle for me. I'm glad I had Bud in the room with me. Bud is better with stuff like that than I am. He's better with helping me find a sensitivity sometimes to the material as I deliver it. I'm kind of, I guess, more of a fun kind of energetic guy, and he can kind of be that flat line that sometimes you need when you're dealing with content like that. That was the hardest. That was definitely the hardest.
That was tough because, is what you said, you're dealing with people's reputations. You're dealing with something very serious,
And I care about that.
and all you have is your reputation.
Yeah.
And let's face it, I'm not an expert on something that serious. We play in the sandbox a lot of times. Sports does lends
Hmm.
itself to sports discussions. So let's be honest, just the pure shock of it that
Yeah.
came about. And
Oh
then
God. Yeah.
how it progressed, and how even, the Post Standard, syracuse.com, had to declare, well, we did look into this, and this is why we didn't initially publish this story. And then ESPN swoops in, and it just became such a complex discussion to have. I guess to this day is a complex discussion to have, but your audience is still counting on you every day when that red light comes on, in our case for 2 hours or whatever the case may be, to offer some kind of perspective. And I always found, Jim, and one thing that's evolved, and even in this space today, that if you're just honest with your audience,
Yeah.
some people feel like you have to project this sort of, like, I'm trying to think of, like a Tom Brokaw, I'm an expert type of thing.
Right.
But you find that your audience appreciates when you say, look, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know
Just be
the answer,
honest. Right.
but I'm going to try and find out for you. I'm going to talk to people that are experts on this. And that always goes a much longer way than trying to fake your way through it. And you just can't do that. I think that's something that you and Bud really captured, and something that you and Paul in the current formation of the show have really captured with people. So
I've never been scared, ever been scared on air to say I don't know the answer.
yeah,
I'm not sure where I stand. I always felt that callers, some of them very articulate and very smart, could oftentimes, where I started on a topic and went down a road and was like, this is just wrong and I don't like it. And then a caller came on, started talking about it from a completely different perspective. And I was like, darn, man, I might have this wrong. You're kind of changing my mind here a little bit. Like, I never put myself in a bottle where I just had to always be right, had to always have only one perspective. I don't think it's human nature really to be that way anyway. I mean, there are things we love, there are things we hate, and then there are things we're just kind of like, eh. And I always felt the same way. Like, when I'm passionate about something, I can go at it, no question. When I'm in the middle, sometimes you can move me. You can
sure,
convince me maybe
yeah.
to move into your side, into your corner, if you make a strong enough argument. And that happened to me a lot on the air over the years. That was kind of a surprising thing.
So I do still want your
Yeah.
best day on the
Yes.
air. Maybe
Okay.
I'll trigger something in your mind, because I
Yep.
can answer that easily. It was when we worked together at Clear Channel Radio, and it was the night Syracuse won the national championship.
Yeah. I
And
mean, come on. Yeah. Yeah.
you'll recall that I was very passionate about wanting to go to New Orleans.
Yes.
And for a myriad of reasons, it did not work out.
Hmm.
But man, it was so much better
To be
being
here.
home,
To be here.
to be on the air,
Yeah.
and to be the person people were calling in what,
Fantastic.
for many of them, was, outside of like having a child, one of the greatest moments of their life. And we were on the air all night until, God rest his
God
soul, the
knows when.
legend Joe Galuski walks in at
Yeah.
4 a.m. and says,
Yeah.
"What the hell are you still doing
Oh,
here?"
all right, Joe, you ready to take over? They're still calling. They're still
all
calling.
night, all night. And then Jeff Mercer and I, a former producer, we went to the Little Gem Diner, and
Hmm.
we're just like, man, they won the national championship. And nothing. And just that whole week, Jim, we broadcast live from the parade, and just the euphoria. And that's, we have talked so long. And you and I talked on your show this week about how my goal was always to be here in Syracuse because this felt like my pro
Yeah,
team. I grew up here.
this is home for you.
And that was the culmination of it. Like, this is
Mhm.
what it was like when the Rangers won the cup and they went down the Canyon of Heroes, and
Phenomenal.
that was the culmination of everything. So that was easily my favorite day on the air. Is that yours as well? Or is there something else that takes the
I
cake?
think I think I would buy that. I think that really is a solid answer. I'm going to offer something strange here, as
Mm.
a, really, this is interesting, and you know the story because you were involved in it. But the 6 overtime game against Utah, against UConn. All right, when Devendorf jumps up on the table and then
Mhm.
it's not over, and then it goes 6 overtimes. Right, that game that went on all night, and I was scheduled to do post game that night on WSYR radio, our sister station, um, and I was sick as a dog. I was a fever. I was a mess. I was a disaster. And so I called, just like, Brent, can you do the show? I'm
Yeah.
so stuffed up. I'm a mess. I can't. I got a fever. I'm just in bed. You're like, yeah, yeah, sure. I'm like, all right, well, enjoy it, man. So I'm home and I got my chicken soup and I'm watching the game on TV. And then the game becomes the game. I mean, it's one of the most fantabulous games in the history of Syracuse basketball. It may not be a national championship, but it's up there. And so I watch it all and I'm sick as a dog. I'm staying up when I don't want to stay up. And then like it ends and I'm like, and they win. And I was like, I have to turn on the radio now. And there you are doing the post game. And it just goes on. I think I was up till like 3 or 4.
I
You
mean, the
just kept
game didn't
making
end till
calls.
1 in the morning.
And like
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
weird way, you say, well, it wasn't my moment. It was really Brent's moment because I was home sick in bed. But I was basking in the joy of that that opportunity. You ended up with that opportunity, but it was a grand opportunity. I was smiling and laughing and kind of cheered me up from being ill that day, that I was listening to Syracuse fans just talk about an unbelievable game and the way that game played out against a hated rival. And that was a really cool night, even though I was laying in bed sick as a dog up till 4 in the morning. I don't know what I was doing.
That interaction, Jim, something, and you touched on it, the callers through the years, and you get to know personalities. So we just lost Stephen Chappell, Stephen North Syracuse, who's the greatest
Very
caller in the
sad.
history of sports
Very
talk
sad.
radio. And we certainly send our best to his family and friends and Syracuse fans everywhere that know Steve, if only by his voice on the radio, right? So that was what I was nervous about when I made this transition and now do this digitally, because you can do direct interaction, like live YouTube
Hmm.
comments, and
Right.
there are options.
Hmm.
It's just a little different. Do
Yes.
you know what your plan is there to incorporate people, either live or some format otherwise, to keep that interaction going with your
Yeah,
audience?
I think one of the cool things is that my new partner, it's not that new. Paul and I have worked together for 7 years, but Paul Esden Jr., Boy Green,
Mhm.
half of the show, he's been in the digital space now for almost 5 years. So, and he does a daily show, 7 in the morning every day. He gets up. He does it 7 days a week, and he does live. All right, and he does recorded interviews
Ooh.
sometimes outside of it too. But he's a worker. Paul's a worker. He always has been. You talk about. I mentioned this on the show earlier this week. But Bud and Paul, two complete opposites, not only in age and experience, but Bud never lifted a finger. Paul does so much of the work and deserves so much of the credit for everything that we put together every day and all the work that he does behind the scenes, getting our stuff out on social media. He's an absolute whiz. He helps train our interns. So major stuff to Paul. But what was the question again? I kind of lost my train of thought there a second.
I did as well, to be honest with you, but that can happen when we get
Oh,
in
you
these
said what we're going to do.
conversations.
What we were going
Oh,
to do in
oh,
terms of interacting. Right. Sorry about
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Paul does a lot of live. I think we initially we're still trying to nail down a time, but we will by Monday, by next week, we will have a time. We're going to do at least a couple of live shows a week. I think a minimum of 2, where it will be opportunity to directly interact with us just like the radio. Of course, you can type in comments and then we can pop them up on the screen and read them and kind of address your comment or your question. And I think within a couple of weeks, I think we're going to start taking video phone calls. So you'll pop up in a third box. Hey, there's Brent Axe and he has a question, and
Oh,
then
that's
boom,
great.
there will be Brent. So I think we're going to do a little bit of both. And keep some interactive stuff going there. And then obviously we'll use social media. I mean, we've been on social for a long time, so we'll be able to respond to people through our social media portals as well. And of course, we'll push out YouTube. Our YouTube channel is going to be home base. So if you want to stay in touch with us going forward with our digital product, it's at MC Show Digital on YouTube, and then click subscribe. And then if you want notifications, you can click on notifications. That's up to you. It's totally free, of course. And then then you'll have that. You'll know when we're putting out content. You'll know when we're going live. We're going to try to make those live shows kind of the same time if possible, wherever our schedules permit. Okay, it's going to be 11 o'clock on Mondays and Thursdays, or whatever it's going to be. So Paul and I are still ironing that out, but we will nail it, and we will let our audience know digitally, hey, again, another live show on Thursday, and when we have topics, we'll probably even roll those out prior to the show. So we'll do our best to kind of interact that way. I mean, it's a different experience, and I think I'm going to learn some things. I think Paul's going to teach me actually a lot about this space as much as I'm going to learn some of it on my own.
Yeah, I found that, and a lot of inside baseball for the viewer and the listener here, but the best of both worlds exists here because, you're on the radio and you say all these things over the course of whatever it is, 8 to 10 hours a week. What sticks? What lands with people, right? Are they in that 10 to 12 window in your case?
Right.
Or whatever the time frame is. And then the internet comes along and you could podcast things and you could put out clips and stuff, but what's really connecting with people? But the ability to do this and put it in front of people and have them choose when they want to listen to it. But also, like, we still do post-game shows. Speaking of post-game shows and your story about, my story after the championship game, the UConn game, even today, to be able to flip on that button after a game and the beauty of it, Jim, is you're capturing it and I had to train myself like, damn, man, it's 12:30. Who's going to watch this thing? Well, guess what? It's 9:30 on the West Coast. It's 6:30 in Hawaii. There are Syracuse fans everywhere.
Right.
And you are going to you'll talk plenty of Syracuse, certainly, but you have other things you talk about. So you have to train yourself that there's no such thing as time on the internet, right?
Yep.
But you do want to tell people, like, when the game's over, you're almost training people to be like, hey, come hang out with us. Or on other subjects, we're going to give it to you and you pick when you want to listen to it. Right. So that putting the power in the hands of the consumer has been my biggest lesson in all of this. We'll do the content and you decide when you want to consume it.
Correct.
And
the content is on demand.
Yes.
Even when we do a live show, it's going to be archived on the YouTube channel. We'll push it out in other places too, but it'll be always be on YouTube. That'll be home base. And now, I missed the show on Thursday morning. I can watch it, listen to it, watch it on Friday morning. And we're also going to do it, not only going to use YouTube, and I wish I can't think of the name of the server that we're going to use, but we're also going to put it out in audio format. Everything that we do. So you'll be able to, do an MP3 and just listen on your car radio if you want, and don't even have to worry necessarily about video because, you shouldn't be looking at video when you're driving a car, right? So we'll put it out in an audio format as well. So we'll have it archived in both places so that for people that just want to get audio, you'll have the audio. If people want the audio and the video, you'll get both.
So, Jim, before I let you go here, I mean, you have been doing a lot of reflecting and some of the favorite topics and people and callers through the years here. Who are the people that you've talked to on the air that will stand out? I mean, I don't want to put any words in your mouth here or assume anything, but there have certainly been some central figures you keep coming back to when you do this, but I want to turn that over to you. Who are some of the more significant people you've had the opportunity to speak with and maybe hope to continue to speak with in your new format?
Well, we'll start with the listeners, there have been some amazing callers. You mentioned Steve in North Syracuse, and he's always had a special place in my heart. Actually, Bud always loved him more than I did because I hated all that analytical stuff. You know me, Mr. Touchy Feely. But I did love Steve and his contributions and his consistency to want to be part of what we were doing every day. And then you got the fanatics, the ones that really are passionate. Pat in Syracuse and the baseball and the basketball acumen. Dro and Clay, who unfortunately got into a job. 10 to noon wasn't great for him, but when we were in afternoon drive, he was a regular, and we had Vito and some of those guys. So I know I'm going to leave out names. Jamie, the FedEx guy, is a big guy that's been on our show in recent years, and Jamie always has something interesting to say. He loves our fantasy leagues, and he participates at a very, very high level. So that's at least a small group of the callers. Then you get the guests. I have loved some of our guests. One of my favorite guests, and he's a guy that's going to do stuff with us digitally and continues to work with us. I only found a few years ago. His name is Sean Devaney, and he's an NBA insider. Sean and I just have a great time on the radio. He laughs at my jokes. He knows I'm a nutty Knick fan. He's always prepared for my crazy Knick questions. Of course, I'm going bananas right now because the Knicks can't even figure out. They fire a coach and have no idea who the next coach is going to be. How do you do that as an organization? Only the inept Knicks. Well, there probably are the Clippers and the Kings that go in that bucket too. They can't figure out, can't get out of their own way, essentially, sometimes. Guys won 50 games 2 years in a row, and you don't even know if you're going to fire him. You have to know who the next guy is, and they don't. They're trying to poach someone else's coach. Good grief. So Sean has a special place in my heart, even though he's going to continue with us, and he's been a short time guy for us. We've had so many good experts and insiders. I don't even know who to throw out there. Then you've got the characters. We had one of them on the radio this week, Perry Noun, the Central New York golf guru. The characters, the people that have just come and gone, but they leave something behind. They leave a trail of humor or sentimentality or something like that. And then for me, first and foremost, and I'll leave it as my last thought here, my two partners. Paul has been great the last 7 years, and we're going to continue to push this out further. Maybe in the end, he'll end up being my partner even longer than Bud. But Paul's been great. I love his energy. I love his kind of verve to do this. He loves the NFL and football, and has really pushed me to be more competent in analyzing football, studying football, knowing all the football players in the league. He helped create our fantasy leagues. We now have 4 of them. We're going to keep them going. We do a live draft, and I think we're going to live draft our top 2 leagues sooner rather than later. We've been talking about we do live draft our top league called the Champs League, and you can ascend or descend in the leagues depending on where you finish. You finish in the bottom 3, you fall down. If you finish in the top 3, so you could drop all the way to single A ball and have to work your way up to Major League Baseball, essentially, to use that as an analogy. It's hilarious. But the people that are in those leagues, they're passionate. It's crazy. So Paul deserves a lot of credit for that, creating that and convincing me to do it. And it has been a great piece for us. And then, of course, Bud. I mean, Bud is, this never would have happened without him. And I don't know even if sometimes he understands kind of what a big part of it was. I learned a lot from Bud. I think as much a ton about sports. Obviously, he's so well traveled. He's done so many things so far beyond the things that I've even gotten to experience in sports because of his affiliation with not just the Post Standard, but the other newspapers he's been with, including the San Diego Tribune. He was at the site of a plane crash in San Diego that was one of the most horrific scenes ever. And he was one of the first on the scene and was part of a group of reporters and editors who won a Pulitzer for their coverage of this crash. And the first time he ever told me that story, I was on the floor, mouth, jaw to the ground kind of thing. So he's given me those kind of experiences, but I think even more so in all the right ways. I think he's rubbed off on me as a human being. He's taught me to be kinder. He's taught me to be more aware of my surroundings, to be a giver and not a taker. We're still good friends, obviously. I wish I got to spend even more time than I do, but I do get to spend time with him from time to time. He holds a real special place in my heart. He's honestly become one of my best friends. And even if we don't spend a ton of time together, I always know if I got a problem, he's a guy I can go to. So it's been a real blessing to work with a guy like that and to continue to have a relationship with a guy like that. He's taught me a lot about life. He deserves a lot of credit for that.
And you know more about Les Miserables than you'd ever want to know.
Oh God, Les Mis and Phantom
and
and Hamilton. Yes, he loves the theater.
Does.
And sometimes he drags me along. Heck, he got me front row seats at Hamilton a few years ago when some guy in his crew dropped out and was sick, called me the night of and said, I'll give him to you. The guy's already paid for him. He doesn't want the money. I was like, I'll take him.
You got that.
So I showed up and sat in the front row. That was
cool. There's a lesson in that. As much as we pick on Bud a little bit, there is a lesson in his approach to life and just kind of go with the flow on everything. And you're doing that. You are going with the flow where it needs to be. But again, Jim, thank you for everything you did. Not only on the radio, I talked about it on your show earlier this week. There is no way I'd be doing what I'd be doing without you. Jim hired me back in the day to do a radio program with him, and off we went. And we've been friends all those years, and I'm glad that we've reconnected. And I'm proud of what you have done, but I'm glad that this is not the end of the road. It's a farewell. It's not goodbye. And I wish you the best of luck in your new venture here. Before we go, tell people where they can find all the new stuff, by the way.
Yeah. So again, we'll be doing lots of content on digital. The best place is to just subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is at MC Show Digital. Just search it out. You'll see we already have plenty of things posted, probably about 40 videos already. We'll post shorts regularly too. Our interns are helping us chop up interviews and turn them into shorts and put video on them. So we have some really cool stuff about the Bills and the Steelers Oilers and the Jets. And I know we've got an interview this week with John Schmelk, our Giants insider. We're going to talk about Giants mini camp. So all of that stuff is still going to be the fabric. And of course, we'll still cover the SU sports here in Central New York. So the best place to go is at MC Show on YouTube. And if you can subscribe, and you'll know exactly what we're up to week in and week out.
Excellent. Well, best of luck with everything, and we'll certainly have you on again here. But thanks for hanging today on Syracuse Sports, my friend. And again, congratulations on an incredible run, one of the best, and as I have told you, Hall of Fame runs in Syracuse media, my friend.
Yeah, I don't need the Hall of Fame, but if they offer it, I'll take it.
Thanks again to Jim Lerch, the Manchild, as his butt in the Manchild, then later the Manchild show with Boyd Green ends on the radio, but will continue as a digital product, and we're looking forward to seeing what Jim has in store in the future. But what a run, the longest running sports talk show in Syracuse history. It's fascinating to see how media has changed. I've certainly gone through that as somebody that did radio for a long time in Syracuse, but also writing for syracuse.com and getting to do this podcast and getting to interact with our Syracuse Sports Insiders, who have such an influence on what we talk about and how on this pod. Your feedback is incredible, and being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you get direct text message access to me. All the information is right there on your screen on how you can sign up today. It's just $3.99 a month to be a Syracuse Sports Insider, but you can sign up for 2 weeks and try it absolutely free. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you can text me anytime. Just want to shoot the breeze, talk SU sports? Let's do that. If you have a question you want me to ask Syracuse players or coaches, let me help you with that. If I have breaking news, our insiders get it first. We keep you updated on all manner of Syracuse sports. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of great conversations, and only Syracuse Sports Insiders get their voice heard on this podcast. We do not highlight comments from social media, from anywhere else. The insiders have the inside track to get their voice heard, your opinions heard, your questions answered on this pod, amongst other amazing perks. So we would love for you to sign up to become a Syracuse Sports Insider today. Our insiders are giving us great tips on original music to feature here on Syracuse Sports. Gypsy Nights is our highlighted band. All the information on where you can find them on Spotify is in the show notes. This is a song called Wait For Me. We played a little bit of it earlier, and let's let Gypsy Nights take us out here on the latest edition of Syracuse Sports. Again, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a darn thing. Thanks for hanging with us, guys. Thanks to Jim Lerch for joining us. We'll talk to you next time here on Syracuse Sports.
hesitation.